At dinner, Dad snapped, "You're this family's biggest embarrassment." Mom and sister laughed. I just smiled and left. Next day, 42 missed calls. Dad texted, "Please." My reply, "Embarrassment is busy. My name is Claire. I am 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I have been a ghost in my own family." I am sitting on the floor of my apartment, my knees pulled to my chest, meticulously applying glue to the back of an old, faded photograph. It is a picture of our family at a beach house when I was 7 years old. In the photo, my older brother and sister are standing front and center, held tightly by my smiling parents. I am standing slightly out of frame to the left, looking at the camera with a confused, hopeful expression. I press the photo into the thick pages of a custom leather-bound scrapbook. This scrapbook is a gift. A desperate, exhaustive olive branch I have been working on for weeks. My fiancé, Colin, walks into the living room holding 2 mugs of tea. He is 35, a high school science teacher with kind eyes and infinite patience. He watches me smooth down the edges of the photograph. He does not say anything, but I can see the mixture of pity and concern in his posture. He knows exactly who this scrapbook is for, and he knows exactly how it will be received. I am a senior event manager by trade. My entire life revolves around organizing chaos, managing million-dollar budgets, and making sure that high-profile corporate galas and extravagant weddings go off without a single hitch. My days are grueling. I routinely stand on my feet for 16 hours straight, coordinating caterers, arguing with floral vendors, and soothing the frayed nerves of demanding clients. I am extremely good at what I do. I am successful. I am financially independent. But the moment I think about my parents, Richard and Diana, I am instantly reduced to that 7-year-old girl standing out of frame, begging to be noticed. As I turn the page of the scrapbook, my mind drifts back to my high school graduation. It is a memory burned into my brain, a perfect summary of my existence in this family. I had worked myself to the bone to become the valedictorian of my class. I spent my weekends studying while the other kids went to parties. I wanted to make my father proud. The day the graduation letters arrived, I ran into the kitchen to show my dad my acceptance letter to a prestigious university with a full academic scholarship. I was practically shaking with excitement. But before I could even get the words out, my older brother, Nathan, strolled into the room. Nathan had just received a letter saying he was taken off the wait list for a mediocre, wildly expensive out-of-state college. My father dropped my letter on the counter without even opening it. He pulled Nathan into a massive bear hug, cheering loudly about how his boy was going to take over the world. That night, my mother bought a huge sheet cake. It had "Congratulations, Nathan" written on it in bright blue icing. My graduation was barely mentioned. I ate a slice of my brother's cake in silence, chewing on the bitter realization that my achievements would always be invisible. Gluing these photos now, 15 years later, I realize I am still trying to earn a slice of cake that was never meant for me. To understand my family, you have to understand the golden children. My brother, Nathan, is 38 years old and genuinely believes he is the next great tech visionary of our generation. He wears expensive black turtlenecks in the dead of the Arizona summer and uses words like synergy, disruption, and paradigm shift in casual conversation. In reality, Nathan has never held a steady job in his life. He launches startup after startup, all of which are spectacular failures. His last venture was an app meant to be a social network for dogs. It crashed and burned within 3 months. Yet, in my father's eyes, Nathan is a brilliant, misunderstood CEO who is just one seed round away from making $1 billion. My father, Richard, is obsessed with status. He cares more about the title on a business card than the character of the person holding it. Then there is my sister, Vanessa. She is 36, a corporate lawyer, and the absolute center of my mother's universe. If Nathan is the golden boy, Vanessa is the glass princess. She works at a mid-tier law firm downtown, but you would think she is a senior partner by the way she acts. Vanessa's life is entirely built on an illusion of extreme wealth. She leases a luxury car she cannot afford. She buys designer bags and shoes that cost more than my monthly rent. My mother, Diana, treats Vanessa like royalty. Whenever Vanessa comes over, my mother fawns over her outfits, brushing Vanessa's hair out of her face and telling her she is simply out of everyone else's league. My mother views Vanessa's superficial glamour as a direct reflection of her own success as a parent. The contrast between my life and theirs is staggering. I do not have a flashy title like Chief Executive Officer or Attorney at Law. I am practical. I wear comfortable flats because I have to run around hotel ballrooms all day. I drive a reliable 5-year-old sedan. I live within my means. Because my life lacks the cinematic drama of a tech startup or the glossy veneer of a high-powered law firm, my parents view me as profoundly uninteresting. To them, event planning is not a real career. They constantly refer to my job as planning little parties. They ask me when I am going to get a real job, completely ignoring the fact that my little parties generate massive revenue and require relentless logistical skill. While Richard and Diana worship the ground Nathan and Vanessa walk on, they treat me like the hired help. I am the one they call when they need someone to pick up the dry cleaning, or wait for the cable guy, or organize the garage. I am expected to be useful, quiet, and endlessly accommodating, while my brother and sister are allowed to be brilliant, demanding, and flawed. But the darkest, most exhausting secret of our family dynamic is not just the emotional neglect. It is the financial ledger. As I finish the scrapbook and close the heavy cover, I look at my banking app on my phone. The numbers on the screen tell the real story of my place in this family. For the past 5 years, on the first day of every single month, a scheduled transfer leaves my bank account and goes directly into Richard and Diana's joint account. The amount is $1,500. It covers the exact cost of the mortgage on their large, aging house in the wealthy suburb of Desert Ridge. My parents live far beyond their means to keep up appearances with their country club neighbors. 5 years ago, my father casually mentioned over dinner that the bank was threatening foreclosure. He didn't ask me for help. He just sighed loudly, stared at me, and said it was a shame that families do not take care of each other anymore. The very next day, I set up the transfer. Since then, it has become a silent, crushing obligation. $1,500 a month. $18,000 a year. $90,000 over 5 years. And that is just the mortgage. Let us look deeper into the ledger. 10 years ago, when I was 24 and barely scraping by in my first junior coordinator role, Vanessa called me in hysterics. She had maxed out her credit cards to buy designer clothes and was about to be kicked out of law school for unpaid tuition. I emptied my entire savings account. I gave her $5,000 so she could stay in school. I spent that entire winter eating cheap ramen noodles and wearing a coat inside my apartment because I could not afford to turn on the heat. Vanessa never paid me back. She never even said thank you. She just took the money, bought a new purse a month later, and acted like nothing happened. Then, there was last year. My father needed a minor heart procedure. He sat in his armchair, complaining bitterly about the state of American healthcare and how the out-of-pocket costs were going to ruin him. Once again, there was no direct request. Just the heavy, manipulative silence of expectation. I quietly swiped my debit card at the hospital billing department for $3,000. Not once has anyone in this family acknowledged the financial life support I provide. It is a terrifying psychological trap I built for myself. I convinced myself that if I became the financial pillar of the family, they could not throw me away. I bought into the illusion of transactional love. I believed that if I paid enough, if I sacrificed enough, if I was useful enough, they would eventually have no choice but to respect me. I was funding the very people who looked right through me, paying for the privilege of being ignored. The present day feels different, though. As I get ready for the monthly Sunday family dinner, a warm, undeniable spark of hope is glowing in my chest. This week has been the greatest week of my entire professional and personal life. On Wednesday, the CEO of my event firm called me into his office. He told me that my meticulous work had saved the company massive amounts of money and retained our biggest corporate clients. He slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a promotion. I was officially named Director of Event Operations, complete with a new office and a massive salary bump that pushed my income well into the 6 figures. I almost cried right there in the boardroom. All those 16-hour days, the blistered feet, the endless stress, it had finally materialized into undeniable, concrete success. I was completely financially secure on my own merit. Then, on Friday night, the best thing of all happened. Colin and I were sitting on the floor of my living room, eating Chinese takeout in our pajamas and watching a terrible movie. It was just a normal, quiet, perfectly ordinary evening. Out of nowhere, Colin set down his food, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a small velvet box. He did not make a huge, theatrical speech. He just looked at me with those steady, kind eyes, told me I was the strongest person he had ever met, and asked me to marry him. The ring is simple, elegant, and absolutely perfect. It sits on my left hand now, catching the light as I pack my purse for the dinner. I look at the ring, then at the wrapped scrapbook on the counter, and I feel a dangerous surge of naive optimism. Tonight is the night everything changes. I am absolutely convinced of it. I am going to walk into that house in Desert Ridge, and I am going to lay my triumphs on the table. I will tell them about the director title. I will tell them about the 6-figure salary. I will show them the ring and tell them I am marrying a wonderful, stable man. I tell myself that these are the trophies Richard and Diana have always demanded. They want success? I have it. They want stability? I have it. I foolishly believe that when they hear this news, the invisible wall between us will finally shatter. They will look at me, truly look at me, and they will see a successful, accomplished woman. They will finally be proud. I pack the scrapbook into a gift bag, take a deep breath, and head out the door, carrying 34 years of desperate hope in my chest. The drive from my apartment to the Desert Ridge neighborhood takes exactly 30 minutes. It is late afternoon, and the Arizona sky is painted in brilliant streaks of orange and purple. The scenery outside my window slowly shifts from busy urban streets to wide, perfectly manicured suburban roads. Desert Ridge is a neighborhood built on the illusion of permanent wealth. The houses are massive, heavily air-conditioned fortresses surrounded by artificial green lawns that require thousands of gallons of water to survive the desert heat. As I drive past the identical stucco walls, my stomach begins to twist into a tight, familiar knot. The naive optimism I felt in my apartment is slowly being replaced by a creeping dread. To calm my nerves, I connect my phone to the car's Bluetooth and call the only person in my family who has ever made me feel safe. My grandfather, Wallace. He is 82 years old, living in a quiet assisted living facility across town. His mind is as sharp as a razor, and he possesses a blunt, uncompromising honesty that terrifies my parents. Grandpa Wallace is the only person who knows the truth about the financial ledger. He knows about the mortgage payments, the tuition, the hospital bills. When he answers the phone, his gruff voice is an instant comfort. I tell him I am heading to the Sunday dinner and that I plan to announce my promotion and my engagement. There is a long pause on the other end of the line. I can hear the gentle hum of the television in his room. Finally, Grandpa Wallace sighs heavily. His voice is tired, but firm. "Claire," he says, "I am incredibly proud of you. You have built a beautiful life. But I need you to listen to me very carefully. You cannot buy respect from people who are bankrupt in empathy. You are walking into that house expecting them to suddenly become different people. They won't." I grip the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. I argue with him gently, saying that maybe the promotion will finally make my dad see my job as real. Wallace stops me. "You are holding up their entire world, kid. They don't want to see you as successful because if they do, they have to admit how much they rely on you. Protect your heart tonight." We say our goodbyes, and I pull into the long, sweeping driveway of my parents' house. The knot in my stomach is now a heavy stone. I park the car, look at my engagement ring one last time, grab the scrapbook, and walk toward the massive oak front door. Before I even turn the doorknob, I can hear them. The voices bleed through the heavy wood, loud and completely unbothered. I push the door open and step into the foyer. The house smells overwhelmingly of expensive perfume and the rich aroma of a roasted beef tenderloin coming from the kitchen. No one comes to greet me. No one even acknowledges the sound of the door closing. I walk into the main living room. My father, Richard, is pacing near the fireplace, holding a glass of scotch in one hand and his phone in the other. He is practically shouting into the receiver, his voice booming with exaggerated importance. He is talking to a neighbor about Nathan's latest startup, bragging about seed rounds, angel investors, and market dominance. It is all empty air, but he speaks with such conviction you would think Nathan just cured a major disease. I walk past him toward the kitchen. My mother, Diana, is standing by the marble island, pouring a glass of expensive red wine for my sister, Vanessa. Vanessa is wearing a sharp, tailored blazer and is complaining loudly about how incompetent the junior partners at her law firm are. Neither of them looks up as I approach. I stand there awkwardly holding the gift bag. I force a cheerful tone and say hello. Diana glances at me for a fraction of a second, gives a tight, closed-lipped smile, and goes right back to pouring the wine. I pull the wrapped scrapbook out of the bag and gently set it on the counter near her hand. I tell her I spent the last few weeks putting together a family album for her and Dad, full of old memories. Diana doesn't even touch it. She looks at the wrapped package, frowns slightly, and pushes it face down onto a cork coaster so it doesn't scratch the marble. "Just leave it there, Claire. We are busy right now," she says dismissively, before turning back to Vanessa to ask about her new car lease. The rejection is casual, effortless, and brutally effective. I feel my shoulders slump. The director of event operations, the woman who manages million-dollar budgets, vanishes instantly. I am just Claire, the invisible middle child. I walk into the dining room. Nathan is sitting at the massive mahogany table, slouching in his chair, aggressively scrolling through his phone. He doesn't look up. I pull out a chair and sit down, feeling the heavy, suffocating weight of the room pressed down on my chest. I am surrounded by my family, yet I have never felt more intensely isolated in my entire life. I stare at the empty porcelain plate in front of me, taking deep breaths, trying to remember Grandpa Wallace's words. I tell myself to hold on. Dinner is about to start. I just need to wait for the right moment to share my news. I just need them to sit down and listen. If you find this story compelling and empathetic to what Claire is going through, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with the name of the city you live in. Every comment helps the video reach a wider audience. Thank you so much. The food is served. Richard carves the beef tenderloin with the precision of a man who believes he is the king of his castle. The table is filled with the sounds of clinking silverware and the constant, high-pitched chatter of my mother and sister. I sit there, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I keep touching the engagement ring hidden under the table, drawing strength from the cool metal. I wait for a lull in the conversation, a single second of silence. Finally, it comes. Richard pauses to take a large gulp of his wine. "Everyone," I say, my voice cutting through the room with a clarity that surprises even me. Heads turn. Richard looks at me mid-bite, his eyebrows furrowed in annoyance that I dared to speak while he was eating. Diana holds her wine glass halfway to her lips. Vanessa leans back, an expression of boredom already settling on her face. For one fleeting second, I have their undivided attention, and my heart lifts with a final, desperate spark of hope. "I have some incredible news," I continue, forcing a smile. "I was promoted this week. I am officially the director of event operations. It is a huge step up, with a salary of over $100,000 a year. And that's not all. Colin and I don't even get to finish the word, engaged." Richard slams his fork down onto the porcelain plate with a crack so sharp it sounds like a gunshot. The room goes dead silent. My father's face turns a deep, mottled red. He doesn't look proud. He looks disgusted. "Enough, Claire," he barks, his voice dripping with a scorn that feels like a physical blow. "Nobody wants to hear about your little parties. You're 34 years old, and you're still acting like a child looking for a gold star for doing her chores. Do you have any idea how much pressure Nathan is under right now? He is trying to build a legacy, a real company. Vanessa is handling multi-million-dollar real estate contracts. And you? You're bragging about being a glorified party planner." My mother, Diana, lets out a soft, sharp laugh and her lips curl into that familiar, mocking smirk. Really, Claire, she chimed in. It's a bit embarrassing. You're always so desperate for attention. Why can't you just be content to support your siblings instead of trying to overshadow them with these trivial things? Vanessa doesn't even say a word. She just lets out a biting laugh and catches my mother's eye, sharing a private joke at my expense. Nathan doesn't look up from his phone, but I see the faint, smug grin flickering across his face. The words "biggest embarrassment" land like a slap across my face. In that moment, the air in the dining room feels heavy, suffocating under the weight of their collective judgment. I could fight back. I could list every high-profile gala I've managed. I could tell them that the very house they are sitting in is being paid for by my trivial job. I could tell them about the sleepless nights I spent perfecting proposals while Nathan was sleeping off a hangover. But as I look at Richard's glare and Diana's smirk, I realize with a sudden icy clarity that they will never care. They don't want to see me. They only want to use me. Something inside me snaps, not with anger, but with a quiet, final resolve. I don't need their validation anymore because their opinion is officially worthless to me. I smile. It is a slow, deliberate, and incredibly calm smile. I see Diana's smirk waver for a second. I see Vanessa's laugh falter. Without saying a single word, I push my chair back. The heavy wood scrapes loudly against the tile floor, echoing in the stunned silence. I stand up, grab my purse, and walk out of the dining room. Claire, where do you think you're going? Sit back down. Richard's voice follows me, edged with confusion and rising anger. I don't look back. I walk through the foyer, open the massive oak door, and step out into the warm Arizona night. The door shuts behind me with a final, satisfying thud. I get into my car and just sit there for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. They are trembling, but not from hurt. It is the adrenaline of a prisoner who just found the gate unlocked. The night air is still warm, pressing against the windows, but inside the car, I feel a clarity I have never known in my entire 34 years of life. For a decade, I have kept this family's head above water. I have been the silent, invisible pillar holding up their house of cards. Every month, $1,500 of my hard-earned money goes to save this house from foreclosure. Money they take without a single thank you. Money they use to maintain the lifestyle they use to look down on me. That ends tonight. I pull out my phone. My heart is racing, but my fingers are steady. I open my banking app. I navigate to the scheduled transfers section. I find the recurring payment to my father's account. I hit cancel. A little box pops up asking if I am sure I want to stop all future payments. I don't hesitate. I tap yes. Just like that, $18,000 a year returns to my life. Next, I open my text messages. I type a short, blunt message to Richard and Diana. No more money. Good luck. I hit send. Then I do something I haven't done in years. I put my phone into airplane mode. The screen goes dark and the digital tether to their drama is severed. I start the car and drive away from Desert Ridge. As the oversized stucco houses fade into the rearview mirror, my smile holds. I am not escaping. I am choosing myself for the very first time. I drive toward Scottsdale, toward the small, quiet apartment where Colin is waiting. He is ready to build a future where I am enough, exactly as I am. The road ahead feels open and unburdened. I have carried them for too long and now, finally, I am free. I get home, tell Colin everything, and we just sit on the balcony, looking at the stars. I sleep better than I have in years. I don't dream about scrapbooks or graduation cakes. I dream about nothing at all. When the sunlight slips through my curtains the next morning, I feel refreshed, even though the night was short. I reach for my phone on the nightstand and turn off airplane mode. The device practically vibrates out of my hand. The screen lights up with a dizzying list of notifications, 42 missed calls from my mother, all sent between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. There are dozens of texts from Vanessa and Nathan, ranging from confusion to outright hostility. But one message from my father stands out. It was sent at 3 in the morning. It is just one word, please. My stomach doesn't twist with guilt. It stays perfectly still. They have seen the message. They have checked the bank account. They realize the safety net is gone, and the panic has finally set in. I type a quick, final reply to Richard. Embarrassment is busy. I hit send and feel a wave of pure, unadulterated satisfaction. But I know my family. I know how they operate. If I don't set the record straight now, they will spend the next week telling everyone at the country club that I am a heartless, ungrateful daughter who abandoned her parents for no reason. They will play the victims, and I will be the villain in their story once again. I am not going to let that happen. I open our family group chat. The participants are Richard, Diana, Vanessa, and Nathan. The last few messages are a string of insults from Nathan and frantic demands from Diana. I start typing. My thumbs move across the screen with purpose. Since you all think I'm so useless and such an embarrassment, I write, let's clear something up once and for all. For the last 5 years, I have paid $1,500 every single month to cover the mortgage on the house you are currently sitting in. Without my trivial job, you would have been on the street years ago. Last year, when Dad needed heart surgery, I paid the $3,000 copay because none of you had the savings to cover it. And Vanessa, let's not forget the $5,000 I gave you 10 years ago to pay your law school fees when you were about to be kicked out. You never paid me back and you never said thank you. You just bought a designer bag with your next paycheck. I pause, my chest heaving. I'm not done. I have been your bank, your safety net, and your invisible support system while you mocked my career and ignored my life. I am done being the embarrassment that funds your lifestyle. The money has stopped. The mortgage is your problem now. The bills are your problem now. You're welcome for the last decade. Goodbye. I hit send. The words are sharp, final, and undeniable. I don't wait for a reply. I don't want to see their excuses or their fake apologies. I immediately go to the settings of the group chat and hit leave conversation. Then, one by one, I go to their contact profiles and hit block. Richard. Blocked. Diana. Blocked. Vanessa. Blocked. Nathan. Blocked. I set my phone to do not disturb and head into the kitchen to make breakfast. I feel lighter than I have in years. The secret is out. The truth has been laid bare, and for the first time, I don't have to carry the weight of their secrets. I am a 34-year-old woman with a 6-figure job, a loving fiancé, and a future that belongs entirely to me. By noon, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I haven't blocked. It's my grandfather, Wallace. I answer, and his familiar, gravelly voice fills the room. Claire, I saw the message, he says, and I can hear the suppressed laughter in his tone. Good for you, kid. I'm proud you finally stood up and stopped letting them bleed you dry. He tells me that he called Richard and Diana that morning after seeing the chaos in the group chat. He didn't hold back. He told them they were arrogant, ungrateful, and that they had lost the only child who actually cared about them. He told them to figure out how to survive without me and then hung up on them. You don't owe them anything, Claire, Wallace says, his voice softening. Keep shining. You've finally found your worth. I thank him, my voice catching in my throat. For the first time, I don't feel like a ghost. I feel seen. While I am enjoying my newfound peace in Scottsdale, the house in Desert Ridge is erupting into total chaos. Grandpa Wallace fills me in on the details later, and it's even more dramatic than I imagined. The moment my group chat message hit their phones, the carefully built image of the perfect family began to shred. Diana was the first to freak out. She started pacing the kitchen, clutching her phone and demanding that Richard fix this. She wasn't worried about my feelings, she was worried about the mortgage. How are we supposed to pay $1,500 a month now? She snapped at Richard. Richard, usually so composed and arrogant, finally lost his cool. He shouted back that he didn't know, and that Claire couldn't just cut them off like this. The reality of their debt was finally staring them in the face, and it was terrifying. Then the siblings got involved. Vanessa, who had spent years acting like she was the most successful person in the room, was stunned into silence when the $5,000 law school debt was revealed. She tried to deny it at first, but Nathan, who was already feeling the pressure of his own failing startup, turned on her. You took $5,000 from her while I was struggling, he shouted. Nathan had been taking my support for his business expenses for years, never questioning where the money came from. Now, realizing the well had run dry, he panicked too. The house became a war zone of blame. Diana blamed Richard for insulting me and pushing me away. Richard fired back that she was the one who laughed and smirked at the dinner table. Vanessa and Nathan started arguing over who had taken more money from me over the years. They weren't just shocked, they were humiliated. They were forced to face the fact that the daughter they had dismissed as useless was the only reason they weren't bankrupt. Their pride was stinging, and their bank accounts were empty. Grandpa Wallace told me it was the loudest, ugliest fight he had ever heard of. He told me they were tearing each other apart, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in his voice. As I sit on my sofa, sipping coffee and listening to this, I don't feel the urge to gloat. I just feel steady. I feel grounded. My message wasn't just a statement, it was a line in the sand. I had spent years propping them up, allowing them to treat me like trash while I paid their bills. I was done being invisible. Their chaos is theirs to handle now. I have a career that is thriving, a man who loves me, and a life that I am finally proud of. The family's reckoning is just beginning, but my life is finally starting to feel like my own. 3 weeks pass, and the consequences of my decision begin to hit my family like a series of tidal waves. I am at my desk at work, planning a massive corporate gala for a tech giant when my phone vibrates. It's a text from Colin. You okay? He knows I've been dodging calls from random numbers all day. I haven't spoken to a single member of my family since that night, and I have no intention of changing that. My boundaries are made of steel, and I am not tearing them down. Meanwhile, back in Desert Ridge, the house of cards is falling. A certified letter arrived at my parents' door yesterday. It was stamped with bold red letters, "Final notice of foreclosure." My father, Richard, ripped it open, his hands shaking as he read the bank's warning. Without my $1,500 a month, they missed 2 mortgage payments, and the bank is done waiting. Diana is in a full-blown panic. She spends her days dialing my old number over and over, only to be met with a "this number is no longer in service" message because I changed it. She and Richard are now facing the reality that they will have to sell their luxury cars and downsize to an apartment they can actually afford. Their pride is shattered, but their debt is very, very real. Vanessa is reeling too. Her flashy reputation as a top lawyer took a massive hit when a major condo deal fell through. She had counted on a quick commission to fund her lifestyle, but without the financial cushion she used to get from me, she couldn't cover the upfront marketing and staging costs. The client walked away, and word is spreading through the Phoenix legal circles that Vanessa is struggling. She is desperate, begging investors for more time, but her golden girl image is tarnished beyond repair. And Nathan? The tech visionary is drowning. His startup is effectively dead, buried under a mountain of debt that I am no longer subsidizing. To keep the lights on in his tiny apartment, he has been forced to take a second job. He is working overnight shifts at a data center, doing mindless server maintenance. The long hours have left him exhausted, and the dark circles under his eyes have replaced his usual arrogant swagger. He assumed my contributions would never end, and now he is realizing just how much he relied on the sister he called useless. Grandpa Wallace organized a group call with all of them recently. He told me it turned into a pathetic shouting match. Richard tried to talk about family loyalty, but Wallace shut him down instantly. Loyalty, he barked through the phone. You called her an embarrassment. You don't deserve her loyalty. I stay out of it. I ignore the voicemails that occasionally trickle through to my work phone. I focus on my own thriving career and my engagement to Colin. My world is expanding while theirs is shrinking into a cramped, bitter reality. The extinction burst, that's what my therapist calls it. It's that final, desperate explosion of behavior when a toxic person realizes they've lost control over you. For my family, that burst happened on a Tuesday afternoon at my office. I was in the middle of a briefing with my team when my assistant knocked on the glass door, looking extremely uncomfortable. "Claire, there are 2 women in the lobby. They don't have an appointment, but they're being very insistent." I knew before she even finished the sentence. I walked out to the lobby, and there they were. Diana and Vanessa. I almost didn't recognize them. Vanessa, who usually looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, was wearing a wrinkled suit and her hair was a mess. Diana looked older, her face pale and drawn. The moment they saw me, Diana started crying, not real tears of sorrow, but those high-pitched, manipulative sobs I had heard my entire life. "Claire." "Thank God," Diana wailed, reaching out for my arm. I stepped back, keeping the marble reception desk between us. "You have to help us. The bank is taking the house. Richard is beside himself. We have nowhere to go." Vanessa stepped forward, her voice sharp and desperate. "Look, Claire, I know things were said at dinner. Dad was stressed. But you can't just let our parents become homeless. I need you to sign a loan guarantee for me so I can get my business back on track. I'll pay you back, I swear." I looked at them, and for the first time, I didn't feel that crushing weight of obligation. I didn't feel the need to fix their lives. I felt nothing. "Vanessa," I said, my voice calm and professional, "you owe me $5,000 from 10 years ago. You never paid it back. Why would I ever sign a loan for you?" Her face twisted into a mask of rage. "Are you really going to bring that up now? We're family. You have all this money, this fancy office, and you're just going to watch us drown." "I didn't push you into the water," I replied. "You jumped in and expected me to be your life raft forever. I'm done being a life raft." Diana grabbed the edge of the desk, her voice rising to a scream. "You're a monster. After everything we did for you. We gave you a home, we fed you, and I paid for that home for 5 years," I cut her off. "I paid for Dad's surgery. I paid for Vanessa's degree. I have fulfilled my debt to this family 10 times over. Now I need you to leave my place of business." They didn't leave. They started shouting, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and once again, an embarrassment to the family name. My coworkers were staring. My boss was standing in the doorway of his office. I didn't flinch. I turned to our head of security, a large man named Marcus, who was already walking toward us. "Marcus, these women are trespassing. Please escort them out of the building and ensure they are trespassed from the property permanently." The look on Diana's face as Marcus placed a firm hand on her elbow was something I will never forget. It was pure, shocked disbelief. They truly thought that if they showed up and made a scene, I would crumble like I always had. As they were led out of the lobby, Vanessa screaming threats and Diana sobbing, I felt a massive weight lift off my chest. That was the final tie. It was messy and it was ugly, but it was over. After the scene at the office, I went back to my desk and finished my briefing. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. My team looked at me with a new kind of respect. They saw a woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to protect it. That evening, I sat in my car in the parking lot for a long time. I realized that the extinction burst was the closure I never got at the dinner table. Seeing them in their true state, desperate, manipulative, and completely devoid of any real love for me, was the final proof I needed. I hadn't lost a family. I had escaped a cult of personality centered around my siblings. I drove home to Colin. We didn't talk about them. We talked about the guest list for our wedding. We talked about the colors for the new house we were looking at in Scottsdale. We talked about our future. I realized then that I had been mourning a version of my parents that never actually existed. I was mourning the Richard and Diana who should have been proud of me, not the ones who actually were. Once I accepted that they were simply broken people who viewed me as a utility rather than a daughter, the pain vanished. A few days later, I received a final email from an attorney representing my father. It was a formal request for familial support, citing my high income and their lack of resources. I didn't even reply. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, who sent back a one-page response detailing the $90,000 in mortgage payments I had already made as voluntary gifts, and stating that no further support would be forthcoming. That was the end of the legal threats. The silence that followed was beautiful. No more 42 missed calls. No more guilt-tripping texts. No more, please, at 3 a.m. Just the quiet hum of a life being lived on my own terms. I spent that weekend at Grandpa Wallace's facility. We sat in the garden, and I told him about the office incident. He just nodded, his weathered hand patting mine. "You did good, kid," he said. The hardest thing in the world is to stop being a victim to people you love. But they don't love you, Claire. They love what you can do for them. There's a big difference. I know that now, Grandpa, I said. Good. Now, tell me about this wedding. I need to know if I'm going to have to wear a tuxedo, because I'm 82 and I'm not sure I have the patience for a bow tie. We laughed, and for the first time, the laughter felt real. It wasn't a shield or a performance. It was just two people who loved each other, sitting in the sun. I was 34 years old, and I was finally, truly whole. 6 months have slipped by since the day I walked out of that house in Desert Ridge. Today, I am standing in the middle of an empty living room, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels full of possibility. The room is flooded with the bright Arizona sunlight, and the faint smell of fresh eggshell white paint still lingers in the air. This is our new home, a cozy 2-bedroom in Scottsdale with a small, sun-drenched backyard. Outside, I can hear Colin's laughter echoing as he jokes with the movers. He is unloading boxes from the truck, his face smudged with dust, but wearing a grin that makes my heart swell. My phone, which used to be a source of constant anxiety, sits quietly on the granite countertop. I've blocked everyone from my old life: Richard, Diana, Vanessa, and Nathan. Their frantic voicemails and poisonous texts have faded into a past that I no longer carry. My life feels like my own for the first time. I am unburdened by their expectations, their judgment, and their crushing financial weight. Professionally, things have never been better. I was recently named the director of projects at my firm. My team looks to me for guidance, and I've earned a reputation for being the most reliable, visionary leader in the Phoenix event scene. The promotion came with a significant raise, enough to cover the down payment on this beautiful house without a second thought. As I arrange a few books on a built-in shelf, I catch my reflection in the window. I am smiling. And it's not the forced, everything is fine smile I wore for a decade at those family dinners. It's a real, deep-seated smile of a woman who knows she is exactly where she is supposed to be. The only tie I kept to my old life is Grandpa Wallace. He doesn't call often because his hands shake too much to hold the phone for long, but his letters arrive every few weeks, written on crisp, white stationery. I keep them in a small wooden box on my new desk. In his latest letter, his cursive was steady despite his age. "You're doing right by yourself, Claire," he wrote. "I've always seen your strength, even when they refuse to. Keep going. I am so proud of you, kid." I write back to him every week, sharing the little details of my life, the promotion, the new house, the plans for the wedding. He never mentions Richard or the others, and I am grateful for that. Their chaos isn't my responsibility anymore. I don't know if they lost the house, or if Nathan is still grinding through night shifts, or if Vanessa ever salvaged her business. I don't check, and I don't ask. Now, every dollar I earn and every moment of peace I have is for me and for Colin. We are building a life based on mutual respect and genuine love, not on what we can do for each other's bank accounts. I've spent years pouring my energy into a family that saw me as less, but I am done with that. Cutting them off wasn't just about the money, it was about reclaiming my worth as a human being. The wedding day finally arrives. It isn't a massive, over-the-top production like the ones I plan for my clients. It is simple, intimate, and absolutely breathtaking. We are holding the ceremony in our own backyard in Scottsdale, under the warm glow of the desert sunset. I stand in front of a mirror, wearing a flowing white dress that makes me feel like a queen. Outside, I can hear the soft hum of acoustic music and the quiet chatter of our closest friends, the people who saw me for who I was when my own family wouldn't. Colin is waiting at a makeshift altar decorated with twinkle lights and desert wildflowers. When I walk toward him, I feel weightless. I am not walking toward a new identity. I am walking toward the life I earned. Grandpa Wallace is sitting in the very front row. He is wearing a sharp suit, and his eyes are misty but filled with an unmistakable pride. He is the only family member I invited. Richard, Diana, Vanessa, and Nathan are not here. Not because I am bitter, but because I have finally learned that blood doesn't give you a front-row seat to a life you tried to destroy. The ceremony is short. We speak our own vows, promises of partnership, support, and a love that doesn't have to be bought or earned. When we are pronounced husband and wife, and we share our first kiss, our friends cheer, and the sound is bright and unburdened. Later that evening, Grandpa Wallace pulls me aside. He tells me, in a quiet voice, that word reached him about the final collapse of the family in Desert Ridge. They lost the house. The bank foreclosed, and Richard and Diana were forced to move into a cramped two-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. Vanessa's law career is in shambles, and Nathan is still working those grueling night shifts just to pay off his mounting debts. I listen to him, but I don't feel triumph. I don't feel happy about their misery. I only feel a quiet, somber acknowledgement that their choices led them exactly where they are. They had a daughter who would have done anything for them, and they traded her for the hollow prestige of two golden children who had nothing to give. Loving yourself means drawing a line. It means realizing that you can't save people who are determined to sink, especially when they're trying to pull you down with them. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the kindest thing I've ever done for myself. Every step I've taken since that dinner, my thriving career, my beautiful home, the peace I feel when I wake up next to Colin has come from that one choice to say no. I wasn't running away from my family, I was running toward my own soul. As I dance with Colin under the stars, I feel the truth settle deep into my bones. Happiness comes when you stop begging for approval from people who are incapable of giving it, and you start building a life that makes you proud. I want to leave you with this. If you've ever felt unseen, unvalued, or trapped by the very people who should be lifting you up, know that you have the power to choose yourself. You can say no. You can walk away. You can build a life that is yours and yours alone. I know walking away was the best thing for my sanity, and I don't regret it for a second. But sometimes, people tell me I was too harsh for exposing their financial secrets to each other and letting them lose everything without warning. So tell me, am I wrong for letting them drown in the reality they created? If you were in my shoes, would you have done anything differently? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell